So, do you know, Jen, there's something that I find rather fascinating working with you.
What's that, Bonnie?
Well, part of it is, do you realize you could be my daughter?
That's very interesting. I guess that's true, isn't it? You could be my mother.
That's right. So, there's a generational difference here. And yet, what's united us, and we really do have a bond here, is this question of aging and the difficulties and the concerns and that genuine desire to make a difference,
This is true.
to absolutely eradicate this negative image of aging and to replace it with this idea that age is wonderful, because it is. I mean, you know this, I know this, hopefully you realize this too. And how to get that message out there, how to help people feel good about themselves at the age they are, so that they're able to also realize their greater potential and those dreams that you have and that I have and that Jen has.
I know it's funny if you think about it, we spend about half of our life worrying about aging. We start worrying about it when we hit around 40, maybe even younger for some women. And then we worry about it the rest of our lives.
That's right. And well,
That's
actually,
a lot of time.
we were worrying before because we weren't old enough.
That's
You
true.
know? I'm not old enough
I always
to
wanted to be
drive.
older.
Yeah.
Now I am.
Exactly. How old are you?
I'm 45,
45. And
which is an amazing thing to say. Who could imagine being 45?
Well, I could.
It's easy when you're past it.
Right. Well, what are some of these concerns for you and other women at age 45?
I think when you hit your 40s, you start to look in the mirror and notice the signs of aging. I mean, we never feel old. I mean, at any age, really, right? We always think we're still 20. But it's when you look in the mirror and you say, hey, where did that wrinkle come from? Where did that little aging spot come from? And, those gray hairs, of course.
Uh-huh.
And it's kind of unavoidable that you start thinking about it. And, you know, a lot of people, well, some people go obsessed about it and they start really worrying and they start trying to counteract it and fix it. And then some people, and I fall in this camp of, I just don't look at it or pretend it's not there and I ignore it for the most part. And so there's a lot of different ways you can handle it, and no way is right or wrong. But yeah, it definitely starts in your 40s.
You know, when I was probably later in my 40s, maybe early 50s, I had my picture taken with our daughter, who was in her late teens at that time. Mm-hmm. It was at a groundbreaking ceremony, and the picture showed my daughter and me breaking ground together. And the photographer who took it gave me a copy of this because it was it was a great picture. Mm-hmm. But I said to the photographer, I said, you know what's wrong with this picture? She's looking at it and thinking, you know, the lighting's good and everything. No, what's wrong? And I said, you know, you look at that picture and everybody knows that I'm the mother of this young woman. But when we were breaking the ground together, I was her sister. There was no age difference. And that's exactly what you're talking about, I think.
Yeah, it's your perception of it.
Exactly.
But most of us still feel like we're young. And I don't know about you, but I look at people who are maybe in their 20s even, and I lose myself thinking that they're my peers or that they're, you know, I still think I'm that age sometimes. And I forget that they're looking at me like I'm the old person.
Right. But I think too, there's something very important in our attitude. And it's our attitude that is going to make us look and feel old or not.
Yes.
And when we don't let ourselves feel old, when we are living that moment, living truly the moment, we are who we are, and we see ourselves as the age of the people we're with.
That's true.
I mean, my grandchildren and I do sun dances and rain dances, depending on the weather. And I have to say, maybe I don't feel like a 5-year-old, but I sure don't feel like I'm in my 70s. In fact, this aging process, the mental attitude toward aging is very rampant in the 40s.
And maybe what we're doing is we're just kind of gearing up to start worrying about it and prepare for it. Even though we're not feeling a lot of its effects, we still feel pretty healthy and we still feel pretty young, and there may be a few gray hairs, but we're not white altogether. So, but we're starting to look at what's going to happen next and starting to worry about it, and hopefully not fear it, but just be concerned about the changes that are inevitable, that just keep coming.
Now, you happen to have a career, to not have children. You are living in a fabulous community here. These are not fake palm trees, my friends. This is where Jen lives.
I didn't want to wait till I retired to move to Florida.
It must be a very different issue for women who have been raising children and have had so much identity around their children, the successes of our kids, and the difficulties, the trauma that goes with it, and to suddenly have this empty nest, which often happens at your age.
Well, it's interesting because I'm not going through those empty nest issues. To me, it's just a continuation of my life, and maybe my concerns are more about, well, where am I at in my career? Am I where I wanted to be at this age?
And I think that's something that, for those of us who have had children at home, that feeling of freedom is something we almost have to prepare for.
It could be a little scary for some people.
Oh.
What do you do with that freedom?
Exactly. Our daughter, when she finished, we just have one child. Several others that might as well have been our children, but just one that is ours. And when she finished high school, she took a year sabbatical. She was 18 at the time. She left home and she went to Namibia. I raise this because she left. My husband and I were alone, so to speak. She left us the dog. But we were alone with a daughter who had gone someplace where we didn't know really the environment where she was. And what was interesting was we discovered that we were ready for it.
That's great.
We were ready to have time just as a couple again. But of course, there are a lot of single parents out there. There are also a lot of people out there who have, and maybe you're one of them, where you're realizing that you have another 40 years to live, even though you're 55. And you're beginning to ask questions about what you really want to do. And who do you really want to be sharing the rest of your life with? And this moves us into a whole new theme, which perhaps we can treat next. And we've just gotten so far away from our original topic.
What are your concerns at your age with aging?
My concerns at my age, it's interesting. I'm not even quite sure what they would be, except having enough time to do everything I still want to do.
That's a good concern.
And, you just have to, I tell myself, well, you just have to move forward. You move forward with the idea that you will be here for forever. I mean, I know I won't be. and you won't be either, by the way. But this idea that, if you don't do it now, when are you going to do it? It's like the first part of a journey is that first step.
Or have you always felt that sense of urgency?
No, I think there is I'm not sure I'd call it sense of urgency, but there is that desire, that thought, well, you better do it now, because if you want to also do that and that, we better get moving with this. Right. So that is definitely one. And yeah, I have a story that I'm going to share at some point. Not yet. but we'll come back to
Well,
it
there's a
one
little
day.
tease for our next segment. Stay tuned for the story from Bonnie.
Woohoo! Lovely to have you with us. Bye.
See you next session.
Lots of love.